Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Now, this past Wednesday, we laid to rest, if you will, the final episode of American Horror Story 1984 in our weekly run of reviewing and talking about that show. But this week, also produced a new show for us to talk about. And while we got the first episode on Tuesday with the launch of Disney Plus, Fridays are the day the episodes are going to drop pretty much every week now, except for the Friday that The Rise of Skywalker comes out. I believe the show moves to a Wednesday release on that week. So every Friday, we are going to get to sit down and talk about the first ever live action Star Wars television show. In episode 1, ooh, was it good? And episode 2, yeah, it's doing it for me too. So why don't you pull up a chair, man, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into The Mandalorian, Episode 2, The Child. Now, like I said, it's going to be spoiler-free, and considering that the app just launched on Tuesday and the first episode only came out a couple days ago, I'm not going to mention the major spoiler from Episode 1 in this review, even though that character plays a major role in the episode. What we'll do is we'll just refer to it as, like, the Mandalorian's mission in episode 1. And I gotta say, man, I really was digging this episode. Much smaller than the last episode. When I flipped on Disney Plus this morning when I woke up, it said 32 minutes, and I was like, 32 minutes? Come on! Like, don't be ripping more minutes away from me when I thought I was getting an hour every week. But after watching the episode, what I'm realizing is something that I think should be commended by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau as they're producing, and Favreau obviously is writing the show. There's no fat on these episodes, man. These episodes are clean, they are tight, and they're not building in stuff to make up an hour worth of content. They're simply just telling the story as much as it needs to be told, and I really like that. I think if you were to complain about anything with, like, the Marvel television shows that Netflix had, or a lot of the Netflix original shows that last an hour, it feels sometimes like they're trying to make sure it lasts an hour. And in the world of streaming, you don't have to fill an hour block on television. You can just tell the story as the story is, and that's what they're doing here. And I think that's something that should be commended, because all of those Marvel shows, even some, even like Stranger Things, sometimes you'll have like an episode or two where, like, okay, we're clearly setting things up. American Horror Story, perfect example. There are lots of episodes through the course of a season where you're setting things up, and some of the episodes in the middle kind of sag and slow down because it's like, all right, I know, like, we're almost to where we got to get to, but we got to fill out all the time. You don't have to do that in the world of streaming. It's not necessary. And I like seeing the approach from Favreau and Filoni that it's, hey, we're trying to tell this story. This chapter is this thing. How long does it have to take to tell that part of the story? And for episode 2, it's 32 minutes. And it is a tight 32 minutes. It is an action-packed 32 minutes. It was a very enjoyable 32 minutes to get us to the next part of the story. And considering that, like, it was a short, quick turnaround too, it doesn't feel, it almost feels like an extension of the first episode, as it's completely dealing with, what the ramifications and the outcome of the end of episode 1 was. So from that standpoint, I really enjoyed it. And watching The Mandalorian, while we don't necessarily learn a ton more about him, I feel like we will learn more about him as the series goes. This was kind of we got to get from point A to point B. And how are we going to get there? How are we going to get to learn some things about, the mark that The Mandalorian had for episode 1? And that's what this episode kind of deals with, man. So it's very small. We really only chill with the Mandalorian and with Kuiil, Nick Nolte's character. We do get to see some other characters that you should be very familiar with from the Star Wars universe, which was kind of fun. You saw them pop up. I was like, oh, check that out, man. They're there. And yeah, they're doing exactly what you would think they would be doing. And because of what they do, the Mandalorian gets pissed off. He's got to go after him, and you get a really fun action sequence out of that, man. And it's set on a craft and with some characters that we're familiar with, and it was fun to kind of watch that. It had humor, it had heart, it had lightness to it. So while I think the Mandalorian carries a lot of heaviness with him when he's going in and about. I mean, when the episode opens, he's got to go from where we ended in episode 1 back to his ship, and along that route he kind of runs into some folks where we learn that there's more than one marker out on the objective that the Mandalorian had in the last episode, which is big. That means that there are going to be probably more bounty hunters coming after the Mandalorian, and coming after this mission, this mark, and you get a really fun kind of action fight sequence with him right at the beginning there, and then while it has nothing to do with his mark, what happens leads him to that second thing, and you're just sitting there going, oh man, dude, like, this is fun, this is action packed, like, for a 32-minute episode. What the Mandalorian does, it's fun to watch, man. The choreography is really cool, and I continue to just love the way Pedro Pascal carries himself, man. The way he walks, the way he moves. You know how badass he is. So when he's in trouble or things aren't going his way, it's even more enjoyable to try to watch him figure out how to get around that. And what he ultimately has to do in order to resolve what's going on and take off to the next part of the story is also interesting. We get to see another new alien type of creature that gives the Mandalorian a run for his money in a very fun sequence that also allows something really big to happen where you're like, oh shoot, like, that's already a thing. Like, the mark that the Mandalorian is now towing, I guess you could say, it's pretty powerful, and we get to see him show off a little bit of that where you're like, oh wow, like, that's awesome. And I kind of like the way it plays. So it's another one of these things where you're totally getting that Western feel. I didn't really mention that too much in the first review, but this feels like a space Western, and I like where you can have just these kind of small one-off little bits and pieces of the story being told without having to convolute it with all this other stuff that's setting up other things that are coming. Just give me what needs to be told that directly impacts and affects the Mandalorian. And this, I thought, was a nice episode where you get to see the Mandalorian in action some more. You get some humor. There are some definite laughs, specifically because of the characters that you should be familiar with. When they show up, there's some really funny stuff. And there's definitely a heart. The way in which the Mandalorian has responded to his mark and the way he's going about that part of the story, you can tell that there's gonna be, that the heart of the show is still building, and the interactions that he has with Nick Nolte's Kuiil too. Like, you like the Mandalorian. Like, I understand that he's a bounty hunter, and you could say that he's an anti-hero of sorts, but because of what he's doing, he's coming off more like a hero than an anti-hero, and I think that's good to establish. You want the audience to like the Mandalorian, to want to ride with the Mandalorian, and I think we get that in this episode. And it's another one of those episodes where you just sit there and go, I cannot wait to see what we get next week. Like I said, it was smaller, but I thought it was thoroughly enjoyable. And another thing that I didn't talk about last week, Ludwig Göransson, who did the score for Black Panther and also Creed. He's doing the score here, and I really dug the score last week. There's probably some more new agey sounds and things that he's kind of putting in, stuff that kind of feels like Creed in the last episode, that maybe some traditional or diehard Star Wars fans will be like, it wasn't, but it's really good. Like, if you're going to reimagine the sound of Star Wars for a different character that's not connected to the saga, I think what Göransson is doing from a score standpoint is really solid. Like, it sounds like Star Wars, but he's got hints of things that are different, and for me, I think that works. I don't need it to be exactly sounding like the saga stories, because this is something different. So to have kind of a little tweak, a little taste of something that's got more influence from other places, I don't mind that, and I really like what Ludwig Göransson does. And then, Filoni didn't direct this one. He's just producing. But again, Favreau is writing. And I think the story that Jon Favreau is crafting is being crafted quite well. Like I said, I like that they're not adding too much fat on there. It's very trim, it's very lean, it's very clean, and it's very tight. And if we continue to do that with the looks, oh my gosh, man, like the visual effects just continue to be like, wow. Not too many jankety effects in this episode like we got with the blargs in episode 1, but the CGI work that they have to put in looks really good. The non-CGI work, the puppetry for some of the characters works really, really well. And I just think what Favreau is crafting and building is something that looks and feels exactly like Star Wars should look and feel. And if he continues to do that, if he continues to keep this tight and continues to keep telling a compelling story, even if we're getting it in smaller pieces than I think we were expecting, I think we should be very happy for Season 1, and we should get very happy for Season 2, which Mr. Jon Favreau tweeted out about the other day. From set, he tweeted out a picture of the Mandalorian's helmet, and he was like, on the set for Season 2. Exciting to know that we'll get to have Jon Favreau direct some episodes in Season 2, considering that he wasn't able to do that with The Lion King this time around. But what he is building, what he is crafting and working with Dave Filoni, I think is something that's really, really working, and I think it's something that Star Wars fans should be getting excited about. So there you go, man. Those are all my thoughts on Episode 2, The Child of the Mandalorian. And I hope next episode we get to learn some more about the Mandalorian. I'm okay with walking away and kind of leaving some of the things we set up or kind of briefed in the first episode to do this one. But continue to weave in parts about the Mandalorian so I can continue to care more about him and not just care about him because of what he's doing with his most recent mark. So those are all my thoughts on the Mandalorian Episode 2, The Child. I really dug it, but the question is, did you, man? Are you in on the Mandalorian 2 episodes in? Are you really digging what Favreau and Filoni are doing? Do you like what Pedro Pascal is doing? There's actually been some debate online of whether or not Pedro Pascal is in the costume. Considering that we haven't been told that anyone else is doing it, I would have to imagine it's him. We were told that it wasn't James Earl Jones in the Darth Vader suit so that we could honor the people that are inside. So the fact that we haven't heard it, I think that it is Pedro, and I think what he's delivering is really good stuff. So are you enjoying his take on the Mandalorian, the way he carries himself, the way he presents himself, the way he springs into action when he has to? Are you enjoying the action? Are you enjoying the lighter stuff that was in this episode and some of the humor that's just been weaved in throughout? We know humor can be touchy-feely for Star Wars fans sometimes, but this feels like that natural, subtle humor that Star Wars is known for. And do you think Filoni and Favreau are just producing and creating something that looks and feels more Star Wars than maybe any of the stuff that we've seen since the original saga? Anything you're thinking about The Mandalorian goes down below in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the Seaman every Friday morning, we'll be talking The Mandalorian, except that one time when it moves to Wednesday. You got to go hit that subscribe button and the little bell that follows so you get alerts every time I make a new video. Just come on, man. Come join the Cinema Sit-Down Squad. The Mandalorian Cinema Sit-Down Squad, man. We're having fun. I want to talk with you guys every week. I want to know what you're thinking. So hit that subscribe, hit that bell, know what's going on. I'll keep coming with the content. And until next week, when we can talk some more Mandalorian, hopefully some bigger things for him. For the Seaman Cinema Sit-Down, I'm the Seaman, and I am signing off. Pew, 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 Well, you guys are still here. You must be looking for some more content. Well, don't worry. Seaman's got you covered, man. You got videos like this guy and this guy. And if you haven't yet, and you want to come check out all the Seaman goodies, join the Cinema Sit-Down Squad, man. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the little bell down below that, too, so you can get alerts every time I make new videos.